That's no moon. It's a space station.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Just a few things before we get started. I want to remind everybody that I will be in California this Sunday, Folsom, California, this Sunday, February 23rd, for Mary Beaver's event. She is a former sergeant, human intelligence officer in the U.S. Army, and she has boxes of declassified documents that she has been given the green light to share publicly. So she's kind of doing her own little tour, and she's starting in California, near where she lives, I believe, to start disclosing this information and disseminating this information publicly. It's going to be a 6-hour event. I'll be hosting it, but the tickets are available still online. The website is below in the description, adanaofsoul.com. Tickets are only $50 in person, $25 live stream. If you're in the area, come hang out with us. There's plenty of room. And if not, grab a live stream pass because it's going to be professionally recorded and documented. So because this is important stuff, and we encourage everybody to, support her on her journey because she's really doing a brave thing right now. And if you feel compelled to join us, grab a ticket. And also, we have our conference coming up in May 12th through the 15th, Rebels of Disclosure 2025. You can find all of that information at journeytotruth.online. We have a great lineup of speakers this year. I think there's 13 of them, including Melissa Morton. If you guys are familiar with the Sands of Times books and Sean David Morton, he just recently passed away, unfortunately, but his wife is carrying the torch, and she's going to be speaking at our conference her first time ever, sharing information that she has that Sean never got to release pertaining to the time travel material of the Sands of Time. That's just literally earth-shattering information, in my opinion. I believe you guys have read those books as well. So we're super excited about that. Journeytotruth.online is where you can find all that information. And today we are joined once again by Derek and Daniel from Shred the Veil. We have had them on the show a few times. They even spoke at our event last year and did a wonderful presentation on their grandfather, Daniel Salter, who wrote a book called Life with a Cosmos Clearance. He had an above Majestic top secret clearance, I think 38 levels above top secret or something along those lines. And the book is mind-blowing, but what's even more mind-blowing is the stuff that these guys, his grandsons, are uncovering along the way, along their journey, digging through his boxes and his research and all this stuff, and all the dots they're connecting is really starting to paint a big picture. So we're happy to have them back today to share with us all the updates and revelations that they're coming to. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know how you guys want to start this. Maybe there's always new people tuning in, right? So maybe tell our audience who your grandfather was and why you guys are doing this, why this is important to you to carry on his legacy.
Absolutely, yeah. So our grandfather, Daniel Salter, he was born in 1928, and he had a career in the Air Force from 1947 to 1968. And after that, publicly, he was retired and was a flight instructor pilot out near Dallas, Texas. And then in the mid-late 90s, he started coming out publicly discussing his involvement with UFOs and extraterrestrials and kind of the truth behind the government narratives of that topic. And then he was part of Dr. Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project in 2001, one of 21 witnesses that came forward at the National Press Club in D.C. to give their testimonies. And there he told us that he was part of the NRO, the National Reconnaissance Office, which was a secretive organization until the 90s. It became publicly known, but it was established in the 40s. And so he said his specialties in the NRO were aliens, UFO technology, and particleization, which we've found is the basis of time travel, the way he's describing it. And then in 2003, a couple years later, after the Disclosure Project, he came out with his book, like you mentioned, Life with the Cosmos Clearance, and he went into a lot of information about black projects and the agendas that have been going on since the 1930s about the Nazis, esoteric societies, and the things that they come forward with. The book is just full of information. It's like a handbook of disclosure for people who are just learning about it. And for us, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, just came to mind just the fact that it was written in 2003. I mean, this is over 20 years now, and it just seems like everything in that book is slowly but surely coming to light. So, I mean, there's nothing that has been kind of debunked yet. It's just all starting to make more and more sense as we see everything unfold now. So it's amazing that that's taking place.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no question. I mean, we see what's happening right now on the world stage with disclosure and NHI and UAP and all these fancy new terms they give us, but it's all the same stuff. He's talking, actually, it's probably more involved than what we're actually getting now because, he wrote this book before he died, probably knowing that he was on his way out. Who knows? I mean, I know he had throat cancer, right? And did he not have throat cancer?
Yeah, in the end, yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, he had a series of mini strokes that really deteriorated his health towards the end of his life after he came out with this book, and a little bit before when he was in the Disclosure Project. And that's kind of ties into where Derek and I, our involvement. He didn't start talking about this until the mid 90s, late 90s, and we were teenagers. We would see him, a couple of weeks at a time in the summertime, just for a visit. And he just started coming up with this information about UFOs. And at that time, we didn't know what to think. No one ever talked to us about that. It kind of blew our minds, kind of kept it to ourselves because it kind of sounded out there. We didn't actually know that he was going to the Disclosure Project in 2001. We didn't find out till later. And we didn't even know he was writing a book. So he came out with his book, and at that time, like I said, his health was deteriorating from basically a little before the year 2000 until he passed away. And so we never really got to talk to him about the information in the book. And so that's why Derek and I are kind of on our journey with our podcast and trying to find new answers to corroborate the information that he presented and see what the real truth was around that. Because everything is indicated that he held back a lot of information that he did not put in his book for the safety of himself and for his family. Coming forward like that, there's a history of people that have met their demise coming forward with the truth. So he was very fearful of that risk. So,
right. I mean, I always say this isn't really about disclosure as it is as much as exposing a national scandal, right? This is a crime syndicate that needs to be exposed. So I think that's where the people, walk on eggshells when it comes to this stuff because you never know, what kind of target is going to be put on your back once you start talking. Obviously, I feel like we're kind of moving into safer territory now. In fact, we are, but it all depends on what you're disclosing and who you're exposing. It's still possible to hire a hitman. You know what I mean? So uh, not everyone's in the clear, but so, okay, you guys recently have, I guess, been put in or became friends with a woman who is a channel or a medium, I should say. And she claimed that your grandfather had been coming through to her and relaying messages to give to you guys. And she has taken extensive notes. I have seen some of these notes, I have read through them, and you guys have as well. I'll let you tell that story and how that started, and maybe we can go through some of these notes because I think it tells a story. It's not just information. It tells a story about the entire history of this country and UFOs and all that, and even time travel. So maybe explain how you met her and how that all unfolded.
It was thanks to your conference last year and the fact that we presented and Dan, I'll let you tell that story. But yeah, no, it's amazing that it was almost a year ago and there's been these communications ever since. So yeah.
Yeah, last year at your conference in May, we presented about our grandfather, his history, his background, stuff that was in his book, and we talked about new revelations of different things that we had been discovering from half a dozen different sources, including remote viewing. People have come forward with more information about our grandfather that kind of corroborated what he had in his book, and all of these sources kind of lined up with the stories they were telling us. So it was really exciting for us to present that to people. And this woman was here. Her name is Dina. She was at the conference and she was watching us. And then it was not until the speakers panel at the end, at the very end, when we all got up on stage, that she saw our grandfather appear behind Derek and I with his hands on our shoulders while we were sitting there. And she has these clairvoyant, clear audience. I don't know what you could really call it, but the mediumship capabilities that she's had for most of her life, and she's had experiences with other people coming through from the other side and things like that throughout her life. But it was a very clear image of her grandfather there during that presentation, and she saw some image. She saw him putting something, tying on my shoe or something is what she thought it was, or helping me put my shoe on is what it was. And come to find out later, and after talking to my mom about my childhood and what that would have meant, and what I vaguely remember is when I was in kindergarten, my grandfather had gotten me cowboy boots. He lived out in Texas, and that he would, he had to help me put them on because they were really hard for me to get on at the time. But I was so proud of those boots, and I wore them all the time. And so it was just one the first of very many personal validations that that he presented to her about my childhood, about growing up, that no one else would know. A lot of other validations since May. I mean, since gosh, it's been over 8 months of this communication that she's had with him. And a lot of times in a mediumship, the client will go to the medium and they'll have a session, and the person will be there live to try to decipher what the spirit is saying and what's coming through. And then at the end of the session, they'll close the channel. But this has been just a constant contact virtually for, like I said, almost a year now. When there's just information just keeps coming and coming and keeps appearing and giving her information. A lot of these validations to confirm that this is our grandfather. So it's been a fascinating journey for sure.
And it's important to note that she's not like a professional medium. Like, she doesn't do this for a living. She has her own, a normal day job. And, but that may be why she was chosen in a way, and why she has the energy or the time to do it. But she's also taking it on as if she considers him, grandpa, and like as family now. Like, she really fell in love with I guess our story, but really with him and how he's been communicating with her. So
Yeah, and I'm just going to share this story. I wasn't going to, but I might as well, just to add to this. I recently was in LA filming for our Secret Space Program documentary, and I was staying at Dina's house. She offered up her home for us to stay, and Carrie Cassidy came over and we filmed. It was amazing. And this is when she started really getting into your grandfather, and she pulled out his notes one morning when I was there. And I started reading them like a book. I'm like, "Oh, this is a story," and she didn't know what half of it meant, which is even more validating because she's, writing this stuff down, never even heard of some of these terms, and, like, she didn't know what Bilderberg was and just certain things. And, it was pretty amazing when I started reading it. I was like, "Oh, he's giving you, like, the hidden history, what happened behind the scenes all this time in this country, even in the world." And it's kind of basically, it kind of reminds me of like the Q movement type of stuff. Like it's like these drops, and it's like each note that she wrote like will send you down a rabbit hole. And while I was reading them, she was like, "He's here. He's in the room." And my other friend, Lily Nova, you guys might know her. She was there with us, and Lily's also tapped in psychic. And Dina was like, "Oh, he's here now." And Dina felt him come in the room. And then Lily was like, "Oh, he's right behind me." And as soon as she said that, like about a few seconds later, I literally felt somebody come and put their hand on top of my head. And like literally it felt like straight up like a hand on top of my head, and every hair in my body stood up. I'm like, "Oh shit." Like, it almost brought me to tears. I'm like, "He's really here. Like, there's something to this. These notes are real. This is really him coming through." And he was wanting like to validate, like, yes. And Lily, she's like a channel as well, and she heard, um, you play a role in this also, meaning like her and I and just us, like I wouldn't say just necessarily us in particular, but the people in this movement, right? And we're helping to disseminate this information. So it was such a powerful moment for me that I'm like, okay, I should start paying a little more attention to this because this isn't just personal information. This is stuff that everyone needs to hear. And it really does take the right eyes to kind of break it down and decipher it. And before we start going through those notes, did you guys want to add anything to that? Or Aaron, did you have anything to ask them?
No, I'm just very curious what came through her with those notes, and yeah, can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, a lot of it, like you said, you have to decipher it because it's very cryptic, and like you said, she didn't really understand a lot of the messages, and she's done a lot of research to, she's been so helpful in this whole experience. We couldn't be more blessed with a person to help us, get this information and try to make something of it. But she's, wrote everything down in these notebooks, and it's very
Right.
cryptic. All the messages that you have to really try to, like you said, go down and kind of see where the links are, the connections of what he's saying. Um, yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
Right. And then some of it is not so much like some of it still doesn't even make sense to me. Like I understand kind of what the word is referring to, but like some pages really tell a story. And you guys have read through these. I mean, what do you think before I get into this? What do you think? Like, what's your opinion of like maybe Derek? What is your opinion of like what you see here? Does it ring true to you?
Yeah, especially the fact that there's no way she would know what a lot of these terms are. Oh, um, that's a lot of validation. A lot of things from, say, his book sort of pop up, but I'd say maybe 50-50, like half of it's just stuff that seems really obscure, unless you really know you have to kind of do the research on it and know how it ties together. So it's almost like you said, it'll go take you down a rabbit hole wherever you go. I was going to say that, what I sent you, just so that you have the main notes that are like the channeling part that she got word after word coming through. That's what a lot of it was. But a lot of it too was just him trying to validate that it's him, with little stories about my brother, about the family, like things that nobody else would know about except the family. And so that was happening almost just as much as these channelings coming through, like the actual, like these Q drops or these, the downloads of information he wants us to know. So
Right.
that's just important to know that. So what you see is those, the real specific stuff that he wants us to get to the bottom of. So
Right. So I'm going to start reading through some of these and I think they're all out of order at this point because of the way he sent them and the way I saved them, but it's okay. It'll still all make sense. So, this is just to give you an idea. This was June 30th, 2024. She just writes down words that she hears them: espionage, high-ranking chief, wingmakers, which you guys, the last chapter of his book was about the wingmakers, one of the only people to really write about it seriously, aside from the website itself. And that comes up a lot. Passing the baton. So probably passing on the baton to you guys, I would imagine, right? And
That one's come up several times. The passing of the baton, and she sees that and could confirm that was the imagery with him passing the baton to us about this information.
right. Again, wingmakers, him shining a light on wingmakers, showing me the cave again. Focus on this. So something about the wingmakers cave, which I personally think that the crystal that was found, the technology that was found, has to do with time travel. I think it's directly related to a time travel technology, personally.
Going in, so if just to expand on that one part of it, the wingmakers. So that was back in June when she was writing that. Then she had another experience, and I believe it was like October, September, and it was very like vivid imagery of seeing him in like the ancient Arrow site where the wingmakers had their time capsule in Chaco Canyon in New Mexico, and she saw our grandfather, feeling the walls of the cave, and she see that it had something to do with what he talked about with particleization and like teleportation, and he said that some people, he had the ability to naturally be able to use the walls to be able to take advantage of this technology, and only certain people could do it, could access that. And he said there was like 3 or 4 other ones in New Mexico, but they're located all over the world. He said, and it was like an expansion on that from the first time that he came up back in June.
Yeah, and what's interesting about the wingmakers too is For one, I don't even know if Dina had read the book before she started getting the messages. So a lot of the stuff she didn't even know was in the book, which is even more impressive.
Right.
But two, I've also had this dream, recall, whatever, of it was Ringmaker's-esque dream where I was like this time travel, but we would put our hand on a rock or a stone in order to travel through time into that spot. So if you go into a cave and you put your hand on the wall, the wall has the memory, the record of everything that's ever happened in that exact place. So you just connect with a different era that's stored into the memory of that stone, and you would just go to that moment. That's how we would do it in the dream. But and it's interesting that you said that. I didn't even know that that happened. So
Yeah, and it was teleportation, it was time travel, and it was he mentioned other dimensions, going to other dimensions and our timelines.
yeah, that's amazing. So, the next note is orchestrated. So we can say orchestrated, like everything. The way I take that is everything right now has been orchestrated. Like this, it's all very strategically planned out, even though it might seem kind of like random, but it's not. High-ranking military, powerful government, non-threatening ETs involved, which we have to keep in mind because we understand the threat. Military heist, recon mission, and then underwater world, which I found interesting because we hear about these underwater bases and they very much are playing a role. I mean, there is one that you can see off the coast of Santa Monica, which on Google Earth, you can literally see like the outline of the base under the seabed, the sea floor, which so we know that stuff is real. And Debbie Ziegelmeyer, if anybody knows who she is, she's a MUFON chief investigator here in Missouri, wrote an entire book on like underwater bases and UFOs and documented all the evidence. Nothing actually woo about it. It's like, here's the cases, here's the evidence, this is what we're dealing with. So there's something there. We can say
There
something there.
Yeah, just to expand on that, I just this is another shout out to Carrie Cassidy, guys. I just watched the old John Lear like 3-part series of when she went to his house and he's going through I mean, he has an amazing office. I know a granddad had a little office that I remember in Taos, but it was nothing like what John Lear had. And he's going through all these pictures and he's talking about the underwater part. He's saying this is an image of the naval submarine routes, I guess, but it's a map showing of the West Coast, like Monterey Bay. And he's the one that drew the lines from Monterey Bay to all these other bases that he's saying the submarines can go from the Pacific Ocean and go all the way into like Lake Tahoe. Like, I mean, basically out into probably close to Denver or wherever. It's just miles and miles that you
Right.
can.
Aaron, didn't he say like the whole west coast or west half of the country is like a shelf and the ocean actually
Yeah.
goes underneath of it? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, there's obviously canals, but I don't know if you remember any specifics about what he said about that or not.
I remember that. I don't remember
Right.
specifics, but that they travel underneath it all the time.
Right. Okay. So
And so,
underwater. Go ahead. Go ahead, Dan.
well, when you talk about underwater, and I don't think, not sure if this came up in as she was writing this out, but this may have been another occurrence where she had very vivid imagery of he showed her himself on a submarine going down through to Antarctica, basically, is what she saw
Mm.
to bases down.
Yeah. So Antarctica and Madagascar are two places that come up a lot in these notes, which I find interesting. So underwater world, and then bring it to the surface. All eyes tell lies. Shenanigans, reciprocity, cover up, incarnation, able bodies, racketeer, missions, study, instrument, eye opening, witness protection program, which I find interesting because a witness protection program, are allegedly, according to Sean David Morton, like JFK Jr. and Princess Diana, they aren't dead. They're just in witness protection program, but each one is under a different witness protection program. I think one is owned by Russia. One is like MI6, not that Russia, but
Makes sense, yeah.
yeah, MI6 and CIA, and they have like these dueling hostages going on. So I wonder what he means by witness protection program. Like I think certain people that are involved that we might think have been eliminated are still, playing a key role in this. Career Military Adjustment Bureau. So that's interesting. Have you ever seen that movie? where they literally are like monitoring the timeline and specific people, and they'll like stop time and come in and like literally like alter somebody's mind and like change the course of the timeline just by making little subtle nudges. So she's hinting at, or he's hinting at, an adjustment bureau type of situation that we're in right now, but in a non-threatening way. And then followed by that, she says wingmen, which may be wingmakers, or like they're the wingmakers. If they're time travelers, then they would essentially be like an adjustment bureau team adjusting the timeline, right?
So
Because
I didn't know Adjustment Bureau was a movie, and I guarantee she didn't know that either, or she would have said something. So she was just, again, just proof she was writing these words down with no prior information on this. Yeah.
And just so you know, our grandfather would all the time say, this movie is not fiction. It's based on fact. I mean, he would point out like Enemy of the State, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Men in Black, like at Contact. All these movies are basically telling you what's going on if you pay attention to it. So he was known to do that. I'm sure, I guess somehow he knew to do the same here. So.
Right, exactly. So Adjustment Bureau, non-threatening wingmen, wingmakers, Circle of Life, Ripley's Believe It or Not, which I find interesting, like magic, sleight of hand, illusion. Like this is stuff that shouldn't really exist, but it does. We're being like kind of fed a lie. I think there's a veil that's covering up what's actually happening, and then I think that's Hanover, maybe.
Hanover. So that is that county where we grew up in Virginia, Hanover County, right outside of Richmond. So the best we could do is we see these like random personal confirmations and validations that he puts into a lot of these messages. They'll show up every once in a while. And so it was just they're always scattered in there somewhere. Whenever he comes up, she comes up with the what she calls the military talk or whatever those words are. And then it's like there's a validation in there hidden in there to confirm that it's him.
And then
but there's also
go ahead.
Hanover, Germany. The original Hanover is Germany. So who knows if there's a connection to there?
Well, what I find interesting is right after Hanover, she has escape. So either or could be true. Like Hanover, Virginia, like maybe there's something going on there that he had to escape from, or Germany, which there's no question he was involved with something in some capacity what the Germans were doing, and the paperclip scientists. I think that all comes into play.
He had a tour of duty in Germany. We actually got that from his Air Force record. They gave us his where he was at.
And we've had other sources independently say that supposedly he might have, but he was involved and he regretted, but being a part of Project Paperclip and actually trying to figure out how to put these Nazis into, the U.S. community, because that's what was happening, obviously with von Braun and everyone else coming in with it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So then Dina says, this is a side note, I thought I would flip it and ask him a question. So I asked him if he was in MJ-12 just to see what would come through. He showed me a badge where he showed me the belt buckle. Maybe the belt buckle was him referring to a badge, and I thought it was a belt buckle. Of course, he wouldn't wear a badge for MJ-12. This is kind of like her thinking out loud, but it could be his way of saying yes. Like maybe MJ-12, they don't wear a badge, but they have a belt buckle that indicates that they're a member. Maybe. And
Since that one, she's had multiple instances where MJ-12 has come up and it's like confirming like yes. The one time that came up, I think it was one of the first times, when she didn't even know what MJ-12 was at the time. She was laying down on the couch and she could feel like he was coming to her, and she was kind of laying there, and she put on her phone just to record the audio, and she just spoke what was coming through, and it was like a 40-minute session, and she transcribed it all later. But when it gets to him saying MJ-12, she heard, and you can hear it in the video, there's a sound in her fireplace, like a banging sound, that just, she has no idea what it was. She's never had any sounds in her fireplace in the years that she's lived at her house. It was completely random, but it was like these little, and there was another, during that session, there was another one, I forget what was around, but something significant when that came up that is,
I think random. It was MJ-12 twice, and at the same time, it both made that sound.
So, oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
interesting.
what's interesting too is we just interviewed Charles McNeil, who talked about MJ12 like really running the show on this planet and letting the Illuminati take the hit, take the fall for everything that they're doing, which kind of makes sense in a way. Obviously, there's going to be a fall guy, and the Illuminati is just as complicit as well, but there obviously would be a higher hand at play. So and he says that Charles McNeil said that, MJ12, their ultimate plan is essentially like for our highest good, but it's a horrible plan to get there. And obviously that may not be accurate, but he stressed like it's a horrible plan and these people are sick, um, by just their mentality of how they think things should be going
They
down.
probably think it's good.
Yeah,
That doesn't mean it's actually good.
exactly.
Big
So
difference.
but the very first word she heard after MJ12, after the belt buckle thing, was reckless behavior. Was the first word I heard after I asked him if he was in MJ12. Parentheses interesting,
Mhm.
and then
And he says another. Oh, sorry. No, keep going.
no, go ahead. Yeah, no, jump in anytime.
I think in other notes that she had basically said that when he found out what they were doing, he was, disgusted and just couldn't believe it. And I think that tied to Antarctica in another section or something, and underground there somewhere.
Yeah,
bases
and
there.
we'll get into that. It's
Yeah.
coming right up. So I think after that it says recycle information, notable credibility, bystander, meaning like I feel like he was more of a bystander instead of being complicit in whatever it was.
Yeah,
And
there was another time MJ12 came up, and another one. It was about like oversight, like he was kind of like outside looking in, kind of trying to I don't know, trying to do something with them, or control something with them, something like that.
yeah,
And one more thing to note is when you get to that level, obviously, we think of 12 as MJ12, but maybe I've heard or seen research where it's obviously grown in number, or there's other members like the Jason members that are, both military and the scientific community, and they are also tied in at that level. So there's maybe up to 30 or so. And our grandfather always said there's only 25 people in the world that know things at this level when he was involved back then. So
right.
it's interesting.
And either way, it's a small number of people that have the whole scoop, the whole scope.
That-
It-
Real quick, that's interesting that he said 25 because there's multiple insiders that are on record for saying a number around that number, saying roughly 30 or 25 or 33 people are at the top of the pyramid that are fully in the know and in control.
And that's important to note because he also said that in video it was the original footage of the Disclosure Project with Dr. Greer before they went to the hearing, like all the video footage that they put out. Well, he said that, and he did say that back in like 2000. So it was that long ago that he was.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah.
And even Q hinted at, well, Q said less than 10 people actually, like, no, but that might have been specifically pertaining to that operation.
Right.
So, okay, so recycle information, notable credibility, bystander, innocent until proven guilty. He is showing him washing his hands, like washing his hands of something, physically saw that, saying it was done. Saying he was done with the military bullshit and lies. He got out or he wanted out. So he saw the corruption. Um, and she said, I think he wanted out, but she wasn't for sure if
And we've shared this before on our channel, but our grandfather, being part of the Disclosure Project with Dr. Greer back in 2001, obviously he wanted to disclose information, and that was his main message in his book, also. But when he was in Washington D.C. after, when they were all giving their testimonies, he was the only witness that was there that froze up when it was his turn to speak. He got really bad energy. He told my mom he wanted to leave for the weekend. He left before all the events were done, and he wanted to get out of there. And it was definitely, that anxiety of the fear of what not knowing what he should or should not say. And he definitely wanted to spread the word and put the message out there, but there was a lot of pressure to keep the secrecy.
And there are pictures of him. It's just important to note this because just like at that time, he seemed pretty healthy when he came to visit us in Virginia, because we lived in Virginia. And then my mom said, well, I got to take your, up to this conference, some event at over the weekend or whenever it was, the next couple of days. But he seemed healthy. I have a picture of him in my graduation outfit because I was about to graduate high school, and he looked fine. He's smiling. He's happy. When you see him at the Disclosure Project hearing within the same week, I mean, it looks like he aged dramatically or something. Something happened. He just doesn't seem all there, as coherent as he was, and just out of it. And he's sitting behind Clifford Stone in that other picture. So we have that, and we'll show that in our presentations later. But that's just important to note. It's like somebody must have been trying to stop him from speaking the scene.
I think Dina kind of got a similar hit. Like it wasn't organic what happened and why he didn't talk. So I think there's another part to this page, but I'm just going to start reading this one. And so Madagascar again comes up. Rebuild technology, Hanover, German Reich. Peace treaty. So he's talking about, okay, rebuilding something, technology, German Reich, peace treaty. Don't know what that says. She has a question mark or whatever. London, Daniel, prodigy, loving, kind beings, play fair. We did not play fair, as in the ETs did. Meaning, okay, so we humans weren't playing fair, maybe, the way I took that in this agreement. Is that how you would read that, or did you guys get something else out of that?
That's kind of what I got, because I mean, in his book, he talks about, how the government has, persistently tried to get atomic weapons in space, and every time the ETs have stopped them, and kind of going against what they've told us. And yeah.
Right. So
and
either
of
way,
course, there's more than one. When you say ETs, there's more than one, and there's more than one agreement. Like, Eisenhower was like duped into thinking one thing back then, and also, I think it depends on which part we're talking. Yeah,
sounds like there's some sort of treaty that was a peace treaty that was being made in Germany that had to do with technology, and there was kind, loving beings, ETs involved, but we didn't play fair. Basically, it's kind of what I'm getting from that. And then, we'll skip that part. And this is separate notes. Combat escort, reality in time, whatever that means. Higher mission, nonstop interference, raise your vibration. Madagascar again. 11. Override. Parallel universe. I think that's interesting. Parallel universe comes up. Raise your vibration, parallel universe.
Other thing that came up a lot, reality, time, space, reality, or something along those lines kept coming up a lot consistently.
I think he's trying to tell us, like, there's another universe involved. There's other dimensions involved, like you said earlier with the Wingmaker stuff. So then, override, maybe override the illusion so we can access the parallel universe by raising our vibration.
Get on the highest timeline,
right?
Something like
Sound off, sky jump, reconnaissance mission, power up. So that's interesting. Friendly enemy, which could be taken a number of ways. Keep your friends close, your enemies closer, which is kind of what we're seeing with the whole, like, Trump and what's been going on with that entire movie, essentially. Then War of the Worlds, elevation, 11. 11 keeps coming up, and I don't know did you guys get any insight on what 11 could mean?
My only thought was maybe it was a personal thing, because I was married on November 11th, 2011, 11/11/11.
Oh, interesting.
So it could have been another validation. But War of the Worlds also came up multiple times in different sessions as well.
Right. So there's this part I found really interesting, and this is something we kind of like bounced off each other whenever I was there in LA. Minecraft, like the game, kids underneath, telescope. So what Dina saw, and she expanded on this when we were there. She said something that this game that people are playing is actually directly affecting kids like connected to some sort of like MK Ultra device, like in a headset. So the game that they're playing is like the MK Ultra program that is connected to these kids underground. And it's directly related, which I thought was like I was getting chills. I'm like, that's what's happening. Like it makes sense in a weird way, in like a weird, sick way. But so they can just like the whole planet's like buying this game and playing this game, but somehow it's directly programming these kids or has something to do with the programming mind control.
Wow.
That was interesting to me.
I always thought it interesting that so many people love that game. Like I know, I know it's a pretty neat game. You can kind of create your own world, but I was like, I don't see what's so
Right.
all inspiring, like capturing. They want to play it, but it seemed it's like addicting, I guess.
Yeah, she was very adamant that it was directly related to Kids Underground, that game, somehow or another. Then she put telescope, handwriting, or passing baton again, and passing the mission to the boys. You guys, wingmakers come up again. Inside the cave with the baton, showing me the wingmakers, things flying out of the top of the mountain. And then again, nonstop interference, recollection, brazement, type of metal, handed over, rules, tyranny, Madagascar, development. Then saw an image of an egg, a craft, which is interesting because we had that egg craft that this was June 30th. This was before we got disclosure of this egg-shaped craft. So she saw an image, a development, like a developing story. Saw an image of an egg craft, reaching heights, phenomenon, telescope, recon mission. A recon mission was kind of, I think maybe telescope means like zoom in, like focus on this maybe. And this like recovering this egg craft might have been a recon mission. Obviously, if they knew it was there. Live or die, and there's a lot of like information about the being that was inside that allegedly was killed, and there he was like interrogated and all this stuff. I mean, I don't know how true all that information is, but this could be like foreshadowing of what we're seeing. Animosity, Antarctica, which was also interesting because the TikTok information, this information kind of came out on TikTok, and specifically this being that came from this egg was allegedly interviewed in Antarctica. And like the audio was leaked, but it was specifically in Antarctica. So she's talking about the egg, recon mission, live or die, animosity, Antarctica, temple, treason, counteraction, counterintuitive. Like, so it's just, these are all like little subtle like words describing, I think, what we're seeing happening right now. He keeps pointing to watch like there is a time frame. Clock is ticking. I see this a lot in his messages, but this felt super crucial. And I don't know if she meant like
What's the date on that one?
this June 30th, 2024. And then she saw levitation, mind over matter. Then thank you. 2 thumbs up he gave her.
Yeah, that's like his signal. She'll see that a lot when he's confirming something or validating something.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, there's this. Go ahead.
The other thing to note was, yeah, he'll say, write this down, like he's like, hey, like a pen signaling her to write something down. It's important. Or like him, like at one point, I think more recently now, it's like him trying to go through, like he said, at a desk hunched over, like going through a bunch of papers, trying to find the right paper or find a important document. And I think that's a signal that there's some stuff in the storage that we still need to find. That's really important.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, specifically when this first started, and I don't know if you have the document there, but he very vividly described the storage unit at my house where I brought all my mom's old stuff from New Mexico and had a bunch of his files and boxes and things from him. that's been in there, and she described the keypad exactly to open the gate and how the gate would open, and the locks on the storage unit and everything, like in very much a lot of detail. And we didn't even have any conversations about any of this stuff.
Wow.
It was pretty mind blowing. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she told me. She's like, just go. She's like, I told Daniel, just go cut the lock. Like, get those files out. Like, he wants you guys to get to work.
Yeah. I had to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if there's ever a time to like start taking this stuff seriously, it's right now. I mean, I've been putting so much energy into what we do in the podcast and social media and everything. I'm trying to get my book done. I'm like, this is why we came here. Like, I'm just like, it's go time. I'm kind of, it's a lot, but I feel the pressure to do it. Not like pressure in a bad way, but it's like I'm getting the nudge. Like, yes, like keep this energy going. This is helping, So,
Yeah.
and then this was August 1st, August 11th. His response to Daniel's question on why Dayton, Ohio was coming into his field so much. Do you mind if I read this? Because I think it's interesting. Right away, he showed me a beam of light shooting up from a base into the sky, and then I saw a craft falling, as if the beam of light was shooting the craft down on purpose. Then he showed me two deep underground bases. The upper base, though still underground, was also a top secret base with need for a high level clearance. Then he showed me a base even further down that I believe only very few know about. I saw Greys working there, nothing negative feeling when I saw them. The lower base was even more top secret. I think Grandpa would visit this base on a semi-regular basis. Also, she saw drugs at the lowest base too, maybe like drug trafficking.
And that, from what we decipher, that was Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is near Dayton, Ohio, where they have.
Yeah, exactly. She had no idea that base was there. She had no idea what was in Dayton, but that was the main thing at Dayton, right?
Yeah.
Where multiple people have said that's where they have, they take the crash retrievals and the
Alien bodies
like that.
Yeah.
Right, Patterson. Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, she kind of goes on to talk about that a little bit. And she said, he showed me crafts circling the base. I believe ETs watched that base. I heard loud noises in the kitchen at this time, usually validation on what I'm hearing. So kind of like you said at the fireplace stuff.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I've read this one yet, but maybe I'll read it and see what comes through here. I saw Grandpa in a suit. He was standing with a man, and I could only see their backsides. Grandpa had a dark suit on, and the man he was standing next to was darker than Grandpa's. The man had short, dark hair. Grandpa was patting him on the back as in a good job. Feeling was they both had accomplished something together. We did it, was my feeling. I was then shown a UFO being pulled out of the water, the ocean, with large rusty chains. The boat was huge, but I didn't see or feel military. A large crane was pulling it out. Then I was shown the void. I did not know what it was then. After learning more, I know now that it is what he was showing me. Not sure why he was shown this. I believe he teaches me as well as why I'm shown things. Okay, but that's just like more of a personal note. But it's interesting, like pulling this craft out of the water with the chain, but it wasn't military, which is the private sector, obviously, these clandestine groups.
Right. Him, congratulating the guy like they accomplished something. Like when I hear that, it kind of feels like it resonates with the couple of the different other sources that we've had. One who actually channeled him directly as well in a session and was telling us that he was involved in, back engineering the UFO technology and trying to figure it out with his team. And they eventually had to start communicating with the ETs to figure out, because they were hitting roadblocks on how to really get this technology to work. And so that was a lot of the projects that he was on, is what she was saying that he was involved with. So that kind of ties into what Dina had here, and also some of the other information that people came forward with about him.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Without a doubt, he will place personal information in all his messages so that the boys will know that the information is valid. And she kind of goes into a little more personal stuff, but then she said, he also showed me an underground train in a base, the fast one. I asked him about, oh, that's personal, so I won't say that. And then this one just says wormhole, plate, universe, black metal, plate. She was seeing like this black metal plate wormhole. She drew a sun. Fractals bounce them back. Particleization absorbs the energy into the field. How we transport, become the fractals. Daniel will understand. It's like flipping a switch, electricity turning on. The universe runs on it. So that's interesting. Talking about the particleization, the time travel, I think.
Yeah, and that's what he talks about in his book. Wave to mass, mass to wave is the basis for the time travel. And I don't know, she's read the book since all this started, but a lot of the information, I don't think she had read it when that one was there, because it was just recently that she got a copy of it. Probably
Well,
this
yeah.
fall.
Yeah, I mean, she has notes everywhere, like unsure what this is, question mark. Like she's just writing it down, drawing stuff, It's very interesting to see all of it. So then this was August 2024. This is when he said, write this down. This is what she heard, write this down. Polarity, marksman, indigenous. He showed me him smoking a peace pipe with them laughing. Yeah, this is just kind of more personal validation stuff for you guys.
And he did have a lot of Native American ties when he lived in Taos, New Mexico. He has Indian blood in him, I think Cherokee, but he was very much into going to the sweat lodges and being a part of the ceremonies that they had there.
Well, what's also interesting is whenever I stay with that guy, that quantum physicist in Sedona, who worked 40 years for the shadow government, he claimed that the guys in his program had to go train with the Aboriginals and the Indigenous people all over the world in order to learn their ways, so they can basically unlock their true potential. What humans can already do, we've just been suppressed, or it's been suppressed. So basically, he had to stay with them until he learned how to teleport his physical body, so he can teleport inside the the crash retrieval UFOs, because they couldn't get in because they don't have doors. So it's interesting, like, and it wasn't just him, it was like all their top guys would spend time with the indigenous tribes learning their ways, because like that's how you unlock the secrets, right?
Yeah. And no doubt he knew about remote viewing and that stuff. And
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so it make perfect sense to me if he's spending time with the indigenous tribes, because that's what this other guy told me. He said I had to go train with 9 months for 9 months with the Aboriginals in Africa, Australia, and Easter Island, and they basically couldn't come back until he knew how to teleport his physical body, which he learned how to do. Okay, so going on, this is September 9th, 2024, 9:18 p.m. Anarchy, plagiarism, conflict, desires, mental health, commander-in-chief, war, validate, nonsense, guide, resurrection, awareness. That kind of feels to me, so September, this is right before the election. I feel like this is specifically talking about that. I think she was kind of get like information like real time about what's happening with this commander-in-chief, mental health, war, nonsense, resurrection. Like this is basically like the resurrection of the country right now. That's just the way I see that. So this is actually, honestly, this message here, I was reading through them this morning, and this was actually perfectly timed for me as well. Oh, so that's interesting. Resurrection. She says, then I heard him say 9/12 and then resurrection again. His death date was 9/12. I believe he was telling me that he is resurrected, clearly still here. And then the messages she heard: believe, manifest, love is the journey, relax, all in time. I think that's like wisdom beyond time, right? Believe, manifest, love is the journey, relax, all in time. Like that's powerful. I actually needed, as simple as that was, I really needed to hear that this morning because something that just happened where I was losing patience over, something. And then it's like, I was like, okay, just believe, manifest, relax, love.
Yep.
That one meant a lot to me when I heard it too.
Yeah. And it actually continues, says, don't lose hope. It's coming. Peace from wars, timeline shift, beautiful world, unity equals love. Love is the lesson. Breathe. It will be okay. Commander then she saw him salute, forever grateful, heal the sick. So that's really powerful. That's
Yeah.
really powerful stuff.
That's a good one. And when you said 9/12, I was just thinking that could be like resurrection after 9/11 too, is another way to look at that.
Yeah, I mean, any of this stuff can be interpreted any number of ways, which is kind of the beauty of it, I think. This is September 7th, so this was a couple days before that. Grandpa showed me particleization again. He shows me that often, almost like he is teaching me. He said it is how I went up and out the window that night. I was still awake and conscious during the first few minutes of my abduction. He said time travel and teleportation. I think he's saying out of these things. Oh, I think he's saying all these things require particleization, time travel and teleportation, which is, particleization or what they call molecular dissociation. It's like all in the same, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, you have to like dematerialize basically in order to like.
That's what he alluded to in his book as well. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. He said, jumpstart Antarctica program, I believe. And in parentheses, he said, I am still learning slowly but surely. I believe he had to do with Antarctica and shows me that a lot. And she said, I then asked him, can you tell me as truth? I don't know what that means. I asked him, what can you tell me as the truth? And she said, then I heard I was in Majestic 12, oversight. Maybe oversaw Majestic 12. He keeps saying pirates party. Come to eventually find out after singing for a week, it was a redemption song by Bob Marley. Interesting. Daniel.
That was
that was a personal one for me because she had this that came through. I think it was on a Thursday. I was at this retreat that weekend, and she didn't tell me about any of that. She didn't mention anything about the pirates or anything until that Sunday. And that night before, I was sitting around a campfire, and we're like, do you know how to had a guitar? They were like, do you know how to play any Bob Marley? And I played my Redemption song, which is one of my mom's friend's favorite songs that I used to play all the time. And the first line of that is the old pirates, yes, they rob it. It's the pirate thing. And it's like when she told me that, that's what came through at the same time, like the pirate at the party where I was at and playing the music. Like it just
wow.
The timing of it was the incredible purpose. They came through. Then I played the song, and then I didn't find out about it until afterwards. Yeah,
that's pretty amazing. It actually kind of like really just brings us all home, I think. Like the fact that you're getting those validations in the middle of all this stuff and makes us take the other stuff a little more seriously,
Yeah.
And she said that a lot of this is gone, as a lot as the confirmations have been related to my brother more than me, but maybe like now she thinks that, well, we're communicating a little bit more. And so I might get more validations as we go. But just says on an overall note, whenever she mentions Majestic 12 and like that whole aspect of him being involved, that's still one of the hardest things for me to be like, is that even possible? Like the book, all this stuff. This whole message is amazing and his story is amazing, but it's still like I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. I think we still have to really, take a step back and just see the bigger picture. But it's a lot to take in sometimes. So it's not like we all take it for granted. I think it's just kind of mind blowing every time you hear it.
I agree.
Yeah, sure.
But I think I wouldn't rule it out. Absolutely not. Okay, so this is the October 11th, 2024, where she's talking about what you mentioned earlier about him being in the cave and putting his hand on the wall. I can read through this, I guess. This we kind of talked about, but I'll just read through it. It's interesting. I instantly saw Grandpa in a cave with his right hand leaning up against the cave wall. He was showing me he was receiving energy from the cave walls, then saw both hands on the walls as he was gone, and he was gone. My feeling was the cave was a portal. It felt like a different dimension. He just showed me Daniel going through his book and the end pages where the Wingmaker chapter is. Then he showed me one of those cardboard boxes and more Wingmaker papers in one of them. Man, is that a cardboard box that was in storage, maybe?
Yeah, yeah, and the story, and I have found in one of the boxes, the I guess there was that manuscript before he published his book about the wingmaker, that's the stuff that he had on wingmakers. So
Wow.
I'm curious to see if there's more. I still need to. There's a lot to go through, so I'll have to. I'm still searching, actively searching. Yeah,
We need to have a box party. Let's bring them over. Let's go through the files.
yeah, that would be
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah, that would be fun. She saw him bow, I think maybe that says. Bow in the cave, like honoring someone. Was it Paramonda? I don't know. And could mean since whatever.
yeah. She was at this spiritual enlightenment place where they had Paramonda and a lot of yogi type stuff there, and when it happened. So
Okay. So it is interesting though, being in a cave. Yeah, that resonates definitely. Keep hearing Grandpa says that the Wingmaker caves are teleportation systems. You can time travel from in them, showing me how you can go to different dimensions or they are different dimensions once you enter them. That's interesting. He also said that there are many more caves, even more than the government is saying. The government knows where they are. They have known for a very long time, centuries. 3 in New Mexico. Um, 3 in New Mexico had something after that. Also showed me that there were some in Australia. Not sure how many. I feel like he was in one there as well. All over the globe, he said. The cave systems are like the pyramids. They were used for teleportation, etc. Resonates entirely. I mean, it would make sense why we have a global grid and this is how they traveled and, yeah, pretty wild. The government uses these caves. Wingmakers are angel types of ETs. They are higher vibrational beings, good-hearted, helpful to humanity. Found more caves in the 1960s when Grandpa was alive, he says. Grandpa said the government could not understand the cave systems. Even Majestic 12 could not understand how to work them. Only certain people could use them. Grandpa was one of them. I believe Grandpa was trained by ETs in his whole life. He also showed me an orb craft, like the Tic Tac I have footage of in my backyard. He showed me an orb craft going through the tunnel system in the caves. At first, I thought it was moving through the cave systems. I later realized he was showing me the orb craft going through a portal, looked like a black hole. Then I heard time space reality again. So, this is all fascinating stuff to me.
Yeah.
And when you find that one YouTube that he did, the only one we found really, that was it. You helped us actually with the audio of it, and has Portuguese subtitles.
Yeah.
Well, he does mention the portal systems and the Nazca lines and the Mayan priest having this technology. But it's the one time I remember in the video where he just kind of like he stops dead in his tracks and he's just like, all right, I can't talk about that anymore. Or like, let's move on. Like, because he knew he was getting into the stuff that still was not talked about back then, at least. Like nobody talked about it.
Right. Oh, here's what I'm looking for. Yeah, there's a whole bunch more. Wow. We don't have to go through all these, but there was one in particular I wanted to go through. Yeah, here it is. Okay. So you guys good to keep going? Everybody happy with this? I mean, it's just as fascinating to me going through all this. Okay. This was May 29th. So this is going back like right after the conference, actually, interestingly enough. All eyes on rhetorical, set the precedent, Bilderberg, Jumpstart, NWO, time space reconnaissance mission, Black Opt project. Cupped ear, like listen, saw visual, War of the World, saw him scanning the desk. Here it is, pointing at the paper. Date on the paper was the 25th, then I saw 1978, then a stamp on it. Saw Grandpa handing red roses, then showed me pointing to his wedding finger as if sending roses to his beloved in real time. Bunker, toroidal field. This is just her notes. Consciousness, lack of consciousness. Majestic 12, fireplace noise. Melty pot? Neti pot. Neti pot.
Yeah, that was weird. Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. Time, space, reality. I wonder, like a neti pot is like to clear out your signage patches, right? Like, but it also like completes a circuit. I wonder, like, that could also represent like time travel too. I don't know. In a weird way, I feel like
Tapping into your pineal gland, maybe, or something.
yeah. Maybe the neti pot will help clear that out. Time, space, reality. Don't know what that says. Majestic 12 again. Then seeing Grandpa saluting as if, yes, I was part of the MJ-12. My feeling always. Aerospace, February 25th, military. I saw Grandpa shooting into the sky like he was a rocket. Not sure the meaning of that, but I saw him flying. Cosmo clearance, retractable, investigate. Saw rocket image again. Namaste. Accent. So this is interesting. Cherokee, plagiarism. Does that say debunk Majestic 12, fortify communication underscore? So that's interesting. Namaste, accent, Cherokee, plagiarism, debunk Majestic 12, fortify communication underscore. When I saw Cherokee and plagiarism, I immediately thought how we basically stole our Constitution from the Cherokee, the Constitution of the Cherokee and the Iroquois Confederacy, basically plagiarized their Constitution and made it our own. And then something to do with Majestic 12 and I don't know, fortifying communication. I don't know. I just think there's something there that he's trying to tell us about how this country, the inception of this country. Rapid fire, peace treaty, brigade, primordial. And then she showed belt buckle again, pertaining possibly to the MJ-12. And then unified. Oh, then she saw, okay. Dusting off, she saw Grandpa dusting off flat folders, looking inside them. Maybe those are what is in his storage unit. Nullification, unified, fearmongers, propulsion systems, planetary alignment, Nova Scotia, real-time anti-gravity. When I saw Nova Scotia, I thought Oak Island. Like, what's hidden on Oak Island? Like, they're like religious artifacts, maybe technology. I've heard channelers say that there's like a deep underground military base there. It goes way deeper than the guys on the island even understand. And Sarah Bressman-Cosme, through one of her QHHT sessions, saw that it was going to be generational discoveries. Like each generation is going to think that they've discovered the treasure, but then upon further investigation, they're going to keep discovering it. It goes deeper and deeper, and over time, more technology and artifacts are going to be released as humanity is ready for them. So I found it really interesting that he specifically pointed out Nova Scotia with planetary alignment, propulsion systems, real-time anti-gravity. So I think maybe something along like some sort of planetary alignment is going to determine when this stuff is actually discovered and has to do with the timing of it.
And Nova Scotia has come up multiple times. That's one of those ones that's been like Madagascar, that he's come up. And I was trying to decipher that for a long time, what Nova Scotia was, but that makes sense. Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought of. Go ahead.
Well, why is Trump so interested in Greenland now? That's an interesting part of the whole region up there. So that's one thing. But also, and the other things, we had Sherry Divman on our show, but she also did a session with us individually, me and my brother, and she said that what came through was our grandfather is on a big mothership, on a ship. He's still, maybe in another reality, obviously not physical, but in another plane of existence. He's in a ship and he's trying to help humanity. But it was a ship over the East Coast, northern East Coast, like Nova Scotia area, which is interesting that came up for her.
Yeah. I mean, why not? At this point, So then again, I don't know what that says. Reconnaissance mission. Can't read the next word. PSYOP, nanotechnology, invasive. Then I saw an image of machines being placed in humans' heads and electricity coming out of them as if testing on humans. Then I heard Nazis were doing it. Reenactment. War of the Worlds. Heard again. Neuroscience. Labs. Government underground facilities. Conjunction with black projects. Weapons against humanity. Mission. Recon mission MJ-12. All eyes on. Which is interesting because like when MJ-12 stamped their document, it said magic eyes only,
Yeah.
L operations, not sure what that means. I think maybe she meant like lunar operations, like Lunar Operations Command, LOC. Again, Nova Scotia. Tyrannical, 1912. Definitely something could have happened in Nova Scotia in 1912 that we don't know about. There is definitely a history there.
What about the Titanic?
Oh,
That whole incident. That could be
Yeah.
what it's talking about. And that's
Yeah.
when the Federal Reserve got started, was after the Titanic went down. Then we have the Federal Reserve, we have the money system that we're hopefully going to dismantle right now, but that's been in control of,
right.
reasons why we're caught up in all this. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she goes on and says, Warner von Braun, anti-government, Hitler, Freedom Act, real time again. Anti-gravity, recon mission. Majestic, anti-corruption, longevity. That's interesting. Then I saw a craft flying around the planet, the image of it feeling as ET craft, and I saw a beam of light. Fig tree, temperamental, mastermind, jump room, planned exit, holes in the ozone, Pleiadians, Mr. MCO, maybe a Pleiadian. She thinks that she was seeing a specific Pleiadian. Project Camelot or Cameo, Project Cameo. Maybe she meant Camelot. I don't know.
She didn't know what Camelot was, but that's probably what she was seeing.
Yeah. Project Camelot, industry wars, mind over matter, sensitive material, war crimes. Intergalactic.
So,
go ahead.
but you mentioned holes in the ozone. When I was a teenager, one of the most memorable things, my experiences going to see him when he started talking about UFOs, one of the stories he told me was about the Nazis doing atomic weapons testing in Antarctica, creating holes in the ozone layer. And and she didn't know that at all. But
Right, which is, I think they
There you
call
go.
it Operation Fishbowl or There's a couple different projects that actually were doing that, but Fishbowl was one of them. And then she puts intergalactic contact, friendly family, cryogenetics, Machu Picchu, inbred Indians, Lord of the Rings, which I think Lord of the Rings has a lot more truth to it than we understand, especially Middle Earth, Inner Earth type of stuff. Painting canvas, no picture. She didn't know what it meant. German spies, interdimensional beings, time space reality, transfer of consciousness, last words, waking up humanity.
Yeah. So the painting, our mom is an artist, and she has a lot of her paintings in our storage unit with all his files and like blank canvases, and she saw the images of that later on, confirming that was when it tied us to the storage unit stuff.
Interesting. I think we're getting here. We're almost done here. So
that was that 40-minute session. That was like right after the conference, the first big download that she had. She had started having things come through even as she was leaving the conference that she was telling me about as she was traveling. And then, that was the big one. And a lot of synchronicities that happened from the messages to kind of validate things. Like he gave her a date. This was before she got home from the conference, and it happened to be the same date that we had on a slide. We were on Dr. Sala's show, and she was watching it, and she took a screenshot of it. We were sharing a document, and she had no idea what the document was, or what the date was even. And she was texting me, showing me that she was watching her show. And that date was the same date that he gave her, like a week before when she left the conference. And it was the date on the document of when he re-enlisted or left, retired from the military, basically, which I think is when he became an NRO operative, when he retired from the Air Force. This is 1968. and it was May 23rd was the date, and that was the date that it was that May 23rd. That was the day when she shared that information. So
Wow.
it's just kind of all these synchronicities.
Wow.
There's a lot of other synchronicities that have happened through these messages, like with my personal stuff for me that, she's has no idea what, she lives in California. I live in Pennsylvania. So,
Right. Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Right.
Okay. So we're going to get through this last little part. Dulce, bunker, game over. I think that says, or do you know what I'm
game
talking
over.
about?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Dulce bunker, game over, time frame now, which means the Dulce base is probably, being shut down, game over. Enlisted, enlisted, that can mean enlisted soldiers being, she put love after that. So the way I see it is like some of these people are going to need like love, right? We have to show them love, whether they were involved in this like willingly or not. I think a lot of people were blackmailed into these positions. So I think we just need to remember that like not everyone involved wanted to be there. So that's why I think love is there. And then
Yeah.
rebuild infrastructure effortlessly, time warp mankind, rekindle love. So love keeps coming up, which is something I think that he understands, like plays a key role in this.
Probably just like probably a lot of healing, obviously, from all that's happening in these underground bases. And it's interesting that a lot it's coming out now that they're dismantling these bases now, or they have been at least recently.
Right. Yep, absolutely. Okay. Bunker up. Then he showed me a submarine in Antarctica with Pleiadians also on the submarine, feeling nice people. Mostly nice people in Antarctica, also meanies, also meanies, and they are trying to get rid of the meanies, but get them out. Get them out. Grandpa knew the difference, but played neutral towards both. He was smart, playing both sides. Grandpa couldn't stand the testing on children, but people understood the rest for future advancement. That's interesting. Grandpa showed me a black dog on a leash, pulling him back, like hunting him, showing me how trained he was.
He had a dog named Blackie that when we were growing up uh, that was the dog, and that dog came up a couple times, I think.
Oh,
But
wow.
the testing on the children thing, the and what you just said, which she said around that about having had to do that. The other person who channeled our grandfather in that one session I mentioned earlier, she said that, as I was mentioning about them having to contact the ETs to get further advancements to unlock the technologies that they were trying to reverse engineer. She said that deals had to be made where they would give us the answers to the technology in return that they could, abduct children or something like that. And it was kind of part of the deal that was made back then at the time.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, this stuff is pretty fascinating that she's just getting all this stuff. I think it's pretty amazing, actually. Um, then the next page continues. Submarines to Antarctica bases. They would be underwater, and then the submarine would submerge up. That's what she wrote. Would submerge up, and they would get out in what looked like a military base. Grandpa the feeling I got was initially caught up in awe of it all until later saw the disgusting truth of what really went on down there. So that would make a lot of sense. Like if any one of us were brought down to Antarctica and we were like, holy cow, this is amazing. Look at these underground bases, like these ET tech, but then you realize what's going on, it would be disgusting, disheartening. So I feel like that's what happened. Um, what blood type was Grandpa? Saw him giving blood samples down under the base. Unsure, but felt as if it were there. Whatever that means.
I think I asked my mom. I think she said he was O, which is like the universal one.
Right. She said there were new civilizations there. He made me feel, but he was only able to see some of the base, but knew of the rest. May have seen part of it. They tested on him. Why I saw him give blood, but he was willing, nothing invasive. Why he gave blood? Why was there a higher purpose, pure blood, whatever, talking about the blood. So he consented, I guess, to the testing, offered up his blood, but I find it interesting. There were new civilizations there. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a reason like Antarctica is the big, best kept secret on this planet,
Yeah.
So
And there's
I
still
think,
people trying to go down there all the time.
right. Okay, so that's it. I mean, we just kind of went through all that pretty quickly, but anyone listening can decipher that on their own, and they might have gotten some intuitive hits as well. Like, oh wait, they kind of missed that. This is what he's talking about. So if anybody has anything to say, let us know. But this is all very fascinating stuff, and I think it's kind of crucial right now to helping. What did they always say? You have to mix science and spirituality. Like this is a perfect example of that. Like getting to the truth. We have to be open to these concepts and this mediumship and like messages from the other side to fill in all the blanks that we're not going to find in documents. And
Yeah,
this is kind of amazing. It's like an astral whistleblower, like essentially,
Yeah.
it's like we're still like he's literally blowing the whistle from the other side right now, and it's like such a unique thing that's occurring. And I think that like it's really important what you guys are doing. And Aaron, I know you've been kind of quiet there the whole time listening to me read all this, but what are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating. Like you said, he's still being a whistleblower from the other side, which is incredible. And he's still on his mission, even past his lifetime,
Right.
And I think that's true for a lot of people. I think they're even after they've transitioned from the physical, they're still doing their mission, whatever that is for them from the other side, if not even more so than they did when they were incarnated. And I think he's massively doing that and helping with this shift. And I think that's just one thing he's doing that Dina just happened to pick up on him coming through, which is amazing. But he's probably doing a lot more than that. And that was all fascinating. A lot of it even resonated with me and lined up with things I know. And the fact that there were so many personal things in there that only you guys would know, just made it that much more powerful and legitimate, because there's no way you can fake that, right?
Yep.
Like there's
I
no way
like
she's gonna be able to fake that, or that it would just randomly come through, right? So
And I love how those personal validations are just peppered throughout randomly. Like it's all this
yeah,
military stuff and it's one little personal thing. It's just like, oh yeah, and tell him this just so he like keeps paying attention.
right,
Oh,
right.
One other thing, while you mentioned that, there's a page about just black beret and something about him wearing a black beret. Dina obviously didn't know anything about what that means, and me and my brother didn't know that either. We had to go back and ask our mom, and then we found the VHS tape of him talking where he's wearing the black beret, and our mom's like, yeah, he used to wear that all the time. And so there was something he did within the military that had to do with that, obviously. And there's if you do research on it, there's like certain groups that are like paramilitary or do reconnaissance missions and stuff. Just depends, that are outside normal duties, active duties, I guess. So he was involved somehow with that, which is pretty cool. Another validation.
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And what you said, Aaron, he's actively still pursuing his mission, even from the other side. That's aligned with what Sherry Divban told us when she did our soul reading type stuff, sessions with us. And the other person who channeled him, at the very beginning of the session, he very clearly said that we were not to disclose this person's name because of the potential consequences of. She's kind of more well known, and if it was found out that she had access to the information that he had, it could be endanger her life, perhaps.
Yeah.
Oh,
And just, yeah, imagine all the remote viewing that's going on now that's more popular, and people that maybe have that ability to really tap into these bases and these people working on this stuff. That's still very classified, so it can be dangerous, I'm sure. Yeah.
right, but they also can't hide anymore. It's like the jig is up. It's over. They're at the end of the rope, and we're just gonna find out inevitably. It's coming through from the other side, literally. Like if you're okay, you're gonna silence these people here. Like we're not done. We're coming through. Everyone's
Yeah.
their gifts are turning on. Their people are coming online, and nothing. Literally nothing can stop what's coming. Not like they're gonna find
Right.
life finds a way. Jeff Goldblum.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And now just one final note for me is that because he didn't get to speak at the Disclosure Project in 2001, I mean, it was because he was so scared for not for just his life, but our lives, like his family. And we know that now based on all that's come out. And so I've always felt obligated to get the truth out, but even more so because we're trying to finish what he started so long ago. And the time is now. I mean, we have to. It's not a time to be fearful, but a time to be bold, is what he said in his book. So
Exactly. You guys are doing it.
Absolutely.
You guys are carrying on his legacy, and you're on your mission. So
yeah, and I
good
couldn't,
job.
I
Keep
couldn't
it
be,
up.
yeah, good job, and I couldn't be happier to be a part of it and help, like just
Yeah.
helping, like just disseminate this information, and even and just be involved with reading these notes and stuff. And like I think it was super cool whenever he showed up and like put his hand on my head. I don't know. There's no words that can describe how real that was unless you're there and it happens to you. But it was what I needed for me to focus on this and like read these notes and take them seriously. And when I'm reading them, I'm like, oh, this is amazing stuff. This is exactly in line with everything I'm researching right now and all the stuff that's coming through. So, and he's just, more pieces of the puzzle. And we still like, we're only kind of scratching the surface of what he's talking about. Like, I feel like more and more is just going to become clear.
And thank you so much for reading this because for me, getting all these messages, like, I mean, I have hundreds and hundreds of text messages from her in the moment. It's very hard to put perspective around it, like what this all means. And, as these things are happening, but to hear you read through them. And like, I've had so many insights just in the last hour, just listening to you that I hadn't had before. So I really appreciate that. And you kind of helping us with some of this deciphering for sure.
Yeah.
It's a lot of perspective.
Yeah, no, it's fun, actually fun to me. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate it. And yeah, so I guess we'll go ahead and start wrapping this up. Let everyone know where they can find the book and how they can follow you guys and, whole nine yards.
Yeah, so the book is Life with the Cosmos Clearance, and you can find that on Amazon. And you can find us on our YouTube channel. Our show is called Shred the Veil. Our channel is Clear Thought, CLR Thought. You look that up on YouTube. But you'll see different discussions that we've had. One in particular with Tony Rodriguez about the remote viewing that people did on our grandfather as the target. And Dina even said that a lot of when she watched that episode, what was coming through with the remote viewer was very much aligned with what she was sensing as well. So just a lot of these validations from all these things, that different sources that we've been bringing forward. Just, I guess, knowing the validations that he's had for me and Derek throughout this mediumship in the last 8 months, it just helps me solidify in my mind all these other sources that are corroborating similar things, and really just accepting that this is real. I can't deny it anymore. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. Couldn't agree more.
Exactly.
And yeah, I mean, it was really special to see you guys get up there on stage too and present this information. It was very cool. A lot of people loved it because
It was amazing.
Yeah,
You guys knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
anyone who's interested, you can just scroll through our Rumble library and you can find that presentation. I think I just called it "Life with the Cosmos Clearance: Rebels of Disclosure 2025." It's totally worth your time. It really dives in deep into the material of the book and his life and some more personal things. And oh yeah, this is something I wanted to bring up. I just remembered, Derek, you told us this story whenever we came to Texas to film for the documentary, and I don't know if you want to share this or not, but it involves you being approached by the CIA. And is that something that you want to or feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, I've said it before. It's fine, but yeah, it was just a weird thing that happened, and I was looking for work anyway, so maybe they knew I was intentionally trying to find a job. But I was still eligible in the age range. I don't think I am now to be uh, once you get past your mid 30s or later. So like they basically are looking for like an operations officer is what they call it, and you go to whatever country, you're trained for however many years. It's a whole screening process, but like it was just a very strange thing to have a phone call and somebody say, "We're from the CIA and I'm just a recruiter trying to see if you're interested and if you're right for the job. She said, and this was a woman, probably to try to pique my interest more. So she's like, go to the local library. Don't buy anything with your credit card. Buy with cash, but buy these 2 books to discuss like how it is being in the CIA and all that, and what pros and cons. Anyway, a couple conversations later on the phone, and it's like, I think they found out maybe I wasn't cut out, because I think they're screening you as they're taking the phone call, like how you answer the questions. And I think they're trying to figure out, am I a good enough liar? Am I good enough to be a good liar in the CIA? I was like, I know I'm terrible at that. Like, I want I like the truth more than anything. So just by like the way I answered some of the questions, I'm sure they probably knew it. But I think they wanted to see if I would really wanted to push to get in, or you use that as a way to shut me up too, knowing that maybe I'd be coming out and wanting to talk more. So
They target people who have family members that have been in there, like a father, grandfather. One of the first interviews we ever did on Shred the Veil was with a guy who had been recruited into the CIA because his dad was an agent, and he didn't know about that until he was much older. But he went through the whole training thing before he had to get out. It was too much for him. But he got to see and realize, there's a lot of family ties that would get you in there when they actively recruit you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No coincidence, I think, really quick. That's not an accident. Like, if you had taken the bait, then you wouldn't be here doing this interview right now. Guarantee.
Right.
No.
Right. They own you for life. Once you're in, you're in. And,
Right.
I think that's more validation that he was a part of that more higher level, obviously, clandestine stuff, because he wasn't just Air Force. He was more than that. So makes sense.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been fascinating, guys. You're welcome to come back to the conference. Any of the previous speakers get a free pass the next year, so come on out. You don't have to pay anything. If you feel like hanging out and just having a good time, we'd love to see you there. Catch up, and anybody who's listening, tickets are available. JourneyToTruth.online. We always have fun, and we hope to see you there.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
And we would love to make it. I don't think I can, with the schedule this year, that I'll make it to your conference, but we're doing an online thing March 8th or March 10th through 12th, I think, with Neil Guar, because he does the online stuff. So we managed to get on books for that. So that's coming up. Portal to Ascension. You can look that up. And then maybe we might actually do the Disclosure Now conference in July, if that works out. So
yeah. I'm actually I'm excited that James Bartley's coming from Australia for that one. That's cool. Like,
that's a rare occurrence. He does not normally do that.
Yeah, so I'm excited that he's going to make the trip. It'd be cool to meet him. But that's another one coming up in July. Yeah, Full Disclosure Now in St. Pete, Florida. So go check that one out. I think just fulldisclosurenow.com. I'm not sure the actual website, but that's another one coming up. There's a lot of conferences nowadays. It kind of gets oversaturated, but we're just trying to like keep this stuff going, and now's the time. So anything you're drawn towards, I would just say pull the trigger and do it, because it is life-changing every time.
Definitely.
For sure.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. This has been a blast, and I hope we did this due diligence. I think people are going to enjoy this, honestly. So
thank you for that.
Thank you so much for this. This was great.
Yep. All right. Thank you guys all for being here. We love you. Can't do this without you. Until next time, have a great evening.